All right, welcome to our noontime connection on our Regeneration Church Facebook page. Just something to get started with. I don't know if you saw yesterday that Steph Curry, who's my favorite basketball player, was able to interview Dr. Fauci on Instagram. It's about a 20-minute, 30-minute interview, and it was probably the best interview that I've seen just about COVID-19 and about the coronavirus. It was such a funny thing. I was amazed that Steph was able to get Dr. Fauci, who's probably the most in-demand person in the world right now, who's the leader of the CDC, Center of Disease Control, just at the forefront of this battle against COVID-19. And it was so funny because as he's interviewing Dr. Fauci, all these little hearts are going up on the side, and all these thumbs up and likes and different things like that. But what a great thing that it was a voice of calm. It was just kind of a neat forum for Dr. Fauci to be able to share the things that would benefit us and to keep us safe, and then also to keep us calm. So I thought that was really a great thing. So today is Friday. So on Fridays, what we are going to be doing is looking at family and the importance of family and how do we maintain healthy families during the midst of this. Now, I realize that there are some people that are actually going through COVID-19 themselves, coronavirus. We have a friend that is going through it right now, and they are in constant communication with doctors and physicians that are helping them through that. Just found out another friend that got tested, came back negative, so we could rejoice with them. So there are more serious health things for other people, and that's why the stay-at-home mandate is really an important thing. It's not only for ourselves, but it's so that we don't become unknowing spreaders of that. But then being together in shelter at home, safe at home, whatever you want to call it, man, it has changed life, right? And it's changed the dynamic of what is the new normal and what does it look like. For any of you that are working at home, you know that working at home, it has its benefits, but it's also difficult, especially if you have kids and they're working from home also. It's like you can't go to Starbucks and find your nice little corner seat in the window and like, okay, that's going to be my third place, my spot to get away. In our house is small, and we have two girls that are at home doing homeschooling now, and our son is home, and our nephew is at our house as well. And Deanna and I, when we're looking for a space, there's not a whole lot of space. So there are some things that I was thinking, and this kind of comes right after probably one of my worst evenings. Last night I was a grumpy dad. I was angry about everything. I was stressed. I was kind of frustrated. I wanted to get out, before the sun went down to be able to take a hike. I wasn't able to do that yesterday, and so I was kind of like inside and just kind of frustrated and like a dog that hasn't been walked, just like you got to be careful because those dogs that don't get enough exercise can sometimes be more aggressive. So the first thing, and all of these begin with the letter F, and I think that, Family Friday, so I thought of things that began with the letter F. The first thing is being flexible. That is difficult when you have plans. You have an idea of how this day should go, how our evening should go, how dinner should go, how work should go. All of these plans that we have, we really need to be more flexible during times like this. Chuck Smith, the pastor who started Calvary Chapel, used to say, "Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be broken." And I think if there was ever a time to be flexible, it's now. Whether it would be in schooling or in business or in ministry, all of those things, family, we have to be ready to change. And so as a family, in that flexibility, to give yourselves grace for that flexibility, that plans might not go the way that we want them to go. I think the next letter F that goes along with that is forgiveness. Haven't gotten a chance to say I'm sorry to all of my family for last night, but I plan to do that tonight at dinner because in my frustration, I was snappy and I could just feel that tension. And Deanna was actually trying to, hey, like, let's, she was trying to calm me down. Sometimes the more that someone, and I don't know if you're like this, but I know that some people are like, the more that someone tries to calm you down, sometimes the more frustrated you can get. So I just found myself, losing my temper and realizing that I need to ask for forgiveness, but I also need to forgive, because we in close quarters are going to be doing things that sometimes get on each other's nerves. There's going to be times when we all have that cabin fever. If you've ever been snowed in and you know what it feels like not to be able to get outside, well, today is a decent day, this Friday for us, but I know that this weekend it's supposed to rain. So I'm looking forward to getting outside so that we could, not all have that claustrophobic feeling. But in the midst of it, forgive one another, ask for forgiveness. And that means that we have to do something that I didn't do well, our family didn't do well when I was growing up. When I was growing up, we didn't say I'm sorry. We learned that later on as Christians to say I'm sorry. But growing up, we kind of knew that we were sorry when my brother would say, "Hey, Matt, do you want to go play basketball?" That was kind of like, okay, we're good now. But I think in close quarters, the way that we are, I think we could learn, and we've grown since then, to be able to say, "I'm sorry, would you forgive me?" And then to be able to forgive others. And that leads to the next F. It's fitness. By fitness, I was thinking about this health. I was going to say physical health, but that starts with the PH, although it sounds like an F. But that fitness is, right now, being at home, it's one of the most dangerous things when you have snack foods. You go to the store and you're trying to buy some healthy foods, and then you go for, at our house recently, it has been Pop-Tarts. I haven't eaten Pop-Tarts in forever, but we have Pop-Tarts, and now I just want to eat the whole box in a sitting of Pop-Tarts. So I realize that, fitness, it's physical, but then there's also an emotional health. There is talking, checking in with one another, sitting down around the table and just saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" So one of the things I've invited my family to tonight, we'll see if it works out, is even to have a FaceTime, through video chat, through Zoom, or, some other hangout. Because, our daughter lives in San Jose with her husband, Nate. So Rebecca and Nate are in San Jose, and they are sheltered at home there. And my son, Matt, lives in Southern California with my mom. And so, I'm just wondering, can we all just kind of check in at the same time and just have that time together? So, that's fitness, that's health, that's an emotional health. There's also spiritual health, spending time in prayer, having quiet time, which might be more difficult in a crowded home when routines are thrown off. And if you're like me, routine, you kind of go through your routines, and then when routines get off kilter, it kind of messes you up. So fitness, we need to be spiritually healthy as well. The next F is the word fun. To be able to have fun and just try to create some type of fun in the midst of this. There's a book that I'm reading. It's a novel by David Baldacci. And usually he has like these thriller adventure ones, but it's really more about a family. It has kind of a pace of To Kill a Mockingbird. So what we're doing at dinner is, while we eat dinner, I bought a bag of candy. Okay, so they get one. It's the small little snack ones. They get to choose either a Kit Kat or a Reese's cup. And so we go around, they get to do that, and then I just start reading this book. And I have a terrible country accent, but it takes place in the South. And so I try to voice these different characters as we're reading through this book. And it kind of creates a little bit of humor. And then while I'm doing that, what my kids started to do is they started to build houses of cards. So they would just take playing cards and they're building them. And they're just sitting there building these, houses of cards while I'm reading. And then when it falls, everyone stops and they laugh. And then we just keep going. And I think it's important to look for creative ways to have fun together, to try to make the best of the situation as it is. The next letter F. The next letter F is the word foundation. During times like this as a family, we ask, what is our foundation? So you may have kids that are very young. You might have adult children. We have an adult son that's living with us right now. So it comes back to, what is our foundation? Looking back at history, during World War II, there were times when they would have these fireside chats, whether it would be the president or Winston Churchill, and it would be to calm the people, and it would be to talk about what are the roots of our nation? What are the roots of us as a people? I think as families, it's important that our kids understand that foundation, and we remember those foundations as well. Because when we remember those foundations, out of crisis can come something really, really good when you consider the foundations. Think about the Passover for the Jewish people, for Israel. Right in the midst of the most tragic time for them as a people group, and at a time when there are they're oppressed and there's slavery, and it's such a crazy, difficult time, that during the Passover they sat and they ate this meal, and the meal was very significant. It was symbolic of the deliverance of God. And those Passover meals still happen today. They happen in Israel and they happen all over the world. And those Passover meals remind people of the foundation of God rescuing his people when things were difficult. I think of, for us as Christians, communion as a great ceremony that Jesus set up at a time when he was about ready to go to the cross. Now, we are at a time called Lent. We're headed towards Easter. And it kind of doesn't feel that way right now because we aren't together as a church community. But understand that during communion, Jesus, as he gave these elements, the bread and the cup, and signified that was relationship with him, what the cup represented, this covenant that he was going to seal as he went to the cross. And as they broke the bread, that it represented his body, which was given for them. Something was happening, that the foundation was being set during a time of crisis, that every time we partake of communion, we look back now and we remember what Jesus has done. So, foundation. And then the last one is really faith. How can our faith grow during times of crisis and during times of difficulty? Because as our children watch us and they see what we're going through and they see the way that we respond, their faith will either grow or their fear will grow. But the same thing is true for us as adults. Our faith or our fear, there's this constant battle between faith and fear. And so it's so important during times like this to consider that our faith can actually thrive and grow during times of uncertainty and times of difficulty. Jesus said this in John 16:33. Knowing that this is right before he's going to the cross, he said, "These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take courage, for I have overcome the world." In other words, anxiety, fear, trials, difficulty, tribulation, all of those things will happen. They're going to happen to everyone. They're going to happen whether you are a Christian or not, whether you have faith on a certain day or you don't have faith. But in the midst of it, Jesus says, "I've spoken these things to you that in me you may have peace." And so as I just end our time together, consider this as a family. What is our peace? And where can we receive peace that comes from outside of ourselves? So take time to breathe deeply. To what we've been doing on some dinners is just lighting a candle and just having a time of, hey, before we eat, let's just take 2 minutes. I put a timer on my phone for 2 minutes, and we're going to have 2 minutes of silence. And it's a time to pray. It's a time to be thankful. It's a time to consider God's provision and his protection. And then we eat together. So remember, Jesus says, "I am your peace." And so I hope and pray that you find that peace in Christ today. Also, I wanted to remind you, Monday through Friday, we're going to be here at 12 noon. Starting next week, Monday is Mixtape Monday, which means we have no idea what we're going to talk about Monday. It's probably going to depend a little bit on what happens on the weekend. You could go back in the archive and look at some of the older ones as well. And hopefully as we go through this, it's great seeing faces and seeing names, because we realize that we're in this together. So God bless you. Share this with someone else. They could watch it later and give someone else an opportunity to grow and to be strengthened as a family. So God bless you, and I will see you on Monday.